We've just turned the corner into a core section of this entire series, and that is Cisco Communication Manager Express. We're going to talk about, in this next upcoming little subsection of nuggets, how to get Communication Manager, and forgive me if I call it Call Manager Express, running for a small business. And that includes supporting phones, getting phone numbers assigned to them, supporting a lot of the features on the phones, configuring transfer, hold, the actual directory numbers on the phone, a whole lot of stuff about that, and how to make this thing work for your environment. So this nugget starts the whole thing off by talking about the hardware requirements and installation process. We'll look at CME licensing, because it does take some licensing to get this thing working legally. We'll then look at the design models and how you can set this up. 3 major ways that you can configure Call Manager Express to support the network. Putting the necessary files on the Call Manager router and installing CME itself. Well, let's start this whole discussion off by talking about money. The money it's going to take to run CME. When you set up CME, you're going to need 3 licenses. First off, the iOS license. This is one that you'll want to grab for your router that gives it the right to run the iOS. A lot of times the router will come with it. When you buy the router from Cisco, a lot of times people will buy a SmartNet contract, which lets you continue to download different iOS upgrades and things like that. So you may have the iOS already capable of running the CME. If not, you may need to purchase an iOS license upgrade or renew a SmartNet contract or something like that. You just need to make sure you're running the right versions. To do that, you can always use the iOS Feature Navigator. Let me show that to you. Just shoot on over to Cisco's website. Go to Support, Download Software. Hit the iOS. Hit the Feature Navigator tool. This guy right here. Shoop. Click on that, search by feature. That'll pop up this little window that says what features would you like, and you just throw CME in there, search, choose a version, add it, and click continue. That will tell you all the iOS versions that you need to run CME, in this case 4.1. You'll go in and say, well, this is my model, filter down your criteria based on your model number and version and stuff like that. But you need to make sure that you have the right iOS version that runs that. So that may be, you may already have that. A lot of times they sell CME router bundles that come with it, or you may need to upgrade. Second in the list, you need the feature license and then the phone user license. Now this is very similar to, this whole 3 license process is very similar to the way Microsoft does licensing. When I first got into Microsoft, I thought, man, genius. Because they not only make you pay, let's say you've got your server right here, right? They make you buy a server license to install the server. You've got your client right here, right? They make you buy a client license like Windows XP or Windows Vista to install the client. And then they make you buy a license that says that client can now talk to the server. And, I keep thinking, like, what were they, they're probably like, how can we make lots of money? And they thought, well, let's just make them buy, for every client that wants to talk to a server, let's make them buy a seat license. Or, it's kind of, I always think of it like this, when you buy a coffee pot, you have to buy the coffee pot. That's kind of like your server. And then you have the coffee, which is like your client. You have to, buy more coffee to always use coffee. And then imagine if the coffee company said, well, anytime you walk over to get a cup of coffee, you're going to have to put 25 cents in the coffee pot too. That's in my mind, that's kind of this logic. So Cisco and everybody follows this suit. You buy your server license, you buy the client license. That's this guy, this phone user license that allows you to run the software on the phone that allows that to speak to a Call Manager server or Call Manager Express router. And then you have the feature license, and this is that which allows the server to support a specific number of phones at the same time. Now they typically, if you buy the router bundle, they'll sell it and it comes with like 24 licenses, they call it you can actually look this part number up, FLCCME-small. Go ahead and Google that. That's the smallest. It's a 24-seat license that allows 24 phones to work at the same time. But you can buy like I don't know why they put small here instead of 24, because the next one is FLCCME -36 for 36 more users, and then they go to medium, and then they go to 96, 144, 168, and so on. You can buy these license packs that govern this communication right here. Now, those are incremental, so you could start with a small and then add on a 36-seat or another small license, and you just keep adding them on there. So those are the licenses that it takes to run the Call Manager. Now, with that in mind, these phones, when you buy them, it's like a PC, right? When you buy a PC, you can put on Windows and pay Microsoft money, or you could put on Linux and pay nobody money, or FreeBSD or something like that. You know, FreeBSD is an open source license, and you just throw that on there, you got a nice client operating system. So in the same sense, you can get different firmware images for these guys that let them work with different systems. For example, one of the big ones that is kind of getting some notoriety now is Asterisk. Asterisk. It's a Linux-based PBX system that supports Cisco phones, it supports Avaya phones, you know, whatever vendor phones you want, as long as they speak the industry standard language of SIP. So you can get a SIP image for your Cisco IP phone and run it with an open source system and do everything free without licensing. Now, I know this is a Cisco series for a Cisco certification exam, so the chances of them saying, what system would you use to circumvent Cisco licensing is very slim on a certification exam. I'd say none. But just to let you know that that is out there. And a matter of fact, I want to throw an article out at you from Network World Magazine. Check this guy out. University, actually, Sam Houston State University, and you gotta love the headline, dumps Cisco voice over IP for open source Asterisk. What they did was they were actually, running 6,000 students off of Cisco Call Manager, and decided the licensing costs were just too much. So they went ahead and converted everything to Asterisk, and are now running essentially free. Now, this goes back to the the age-old question of what are you paying for? And when I buy a laptop, I get it with Windows. Why? Well, because I know Windows, and I know if something goes wrong, there's people I can call that also know Windows. When you move into the Asterisk world, you're moving into a world where it's kind of a hack your way through it world. You can make it work. I've played with Asterisk; it works, and you can get it running. But it's like anything with Linux. You just gotta toy with it to get it working right, and if something goes wrong, it's kind of like who do you call? Nobody. You just gotta figure it out and hope that it's not that much downtime. So anyway, not to talk all about Asterisk, this is what you have to pay to get Call Manager running on your router. Once you have the licensing in place, you can then turn your mind over to the design of this. How will CME run? There are 3 different models you can choose from: PBX model, key switch, and hybrid. Now, the PBX is where every single phone will have its own extension. So this works just like a PBX system where people are able to dial each other directly, hit 9, get an outside line, go out the T1 to the PSTN. In a key switch models, just like the key switch systems before, the key systems, you have a shared line to where all of these guys share the same lines. Instead of calling it extension 1100 or 1100, you could just call it line 1, line 2, line 3. And when somebody picks up line 1 over here, it's using the same line as over here. That typically matches to the 3 outgoing analog lines, to where if somebody calls in on the first line, it rings line 1 on everybody's phone, line 2 and 3, and so on. Now, you can also choose a hybrid model to where you can mix this to where maybe some phones, maybe 2 phones are using this kind of system. Another phone is using this kind of system where it's got its own unique extension and so on, to where you can have a blend in your setup. Now, this is not going to be like a wizard where you're walking through during the setup and it says, would you like one of these models? And you say, why, yes, I would like the key switch model. And you can never switch back. You can switch anytime. This is more of a mindset of configuration and how you're setting it up. You can blend whatever systems you want. It's just how to design the network. Now we're ready to get the files. Get the files that actually run CME that you'll be installing on the router. Now you see all these different groupings of files that you'll need. You'll need some basic kind of core files to CME. Music on hold files, GUI files, script files, all these different kind of files. I'll talk about what they are in just a moment. But keep in mind that the router, the iOS version, is the core of CME. That is where you do your configuration and you'll be setting stuff up. These are just kind of the supporting files. Honestly, if you didn't download any of these files, you would probably be okay. Well, no, I'll take that back. Basic files is all you need because that includes the firmware for the phone. But I'll say this, if your phones already have the firmware installed for CME, you don't need any of these files because they're kind of like add-on, the bonus features. The core of the iOS contains all of the CME functionality. So, where do you get these files? You go to the Cisco website. Here we are. Shoop. Click on support. That takes you to this screen right here. Or if you get the drop down, like I'm not getting right now for some strange reason, you just choose download software. And in there you've got your router, iOS. You're not going there. You're going to voice software right here. And once you log in, which I need to do, there we go. Once you log in with your CCO account with valid SmartNet contract and all that and download rights, you'll see that you have all of these different voice software files that you can download for different aspects of Cisco. Unity Express, BTS 10200, that's service provider equipment. But right here is our Cisco Unified, and I love this. I just saw this a moment ago. Cisco Unified Call Manager Express. So that proves to me Cisco uses Call Manager, but they also call it Cisco Unified Communication Manager Express, all at the same time. So it's two names for the same thing. So Call Manager Express, and you scroll down, and underneath here you have all of these different packs. Now in these are the full deal, meaning I want all of these files in one package, one zip file. This is where you can download it. You go down, you choose your Call Manager version that you would like to get. We'll say 4.3. You click on that. It's going to download about a 7 meg zip file that inside of it will have all the music on hold, have all the script files and things like that. But notice up here that you also have the download individual CME files link. Click on that guy and you can download individual tar files separately, like the graphic interface. You see the full system files, that's music on hold, the GUI files, the ACD prompts, ringtones, backgrounds, all that kind of stuff. But you scroll down and you have the ability to just download individual ones, like music on hold files at different volume levels. So there's all kinds of ways that you can download these files. Now let me talk about what these are. The basic files for CME include the firmware. That's primarily the firmware that runs the phones. Music on hold is music and it plays on hold. The GUI. Now, if you don't want the GUI, you don't have to put this on here, but this is all the web interface that you can use to run CME. Now, I even mentioned if you don't want the GUI because a lot of people choose not to use it. The GUI for CME, I'm not going to say it's bad. We'll see it. I'll show it to you. But it's not great. And once you get used to configuring CME from the command line, a lot of times it's like, I don't even want to bother with the GUI. So some people just choose not to download those. Script files. The script files are where you can download Tickle scripts. It actually stands for Tool Command Language. You'll hear a lot of people talk about Tickle. Now, this is not a Cisco scripting language. It's an industry standard. You can go on Google and type in Tickle script and find scripts that do all kinds of things. But these script files give you functionality like auto attendant, to where when somebody calls in, it says, press 1 to get sales, press 2, all those kinds of things. So that's a Tickle script. You could have ACD, the automatic call distribution, where it sends one call to that group, one call to that group. There's scripts that can do all kinds of different things. Those you can download as script files. The XML template files have one main goal, and that is to allow you to edit the GUI configuration. There's actually administrative template files where you can go in and say, I want to modify the GUI to where if you have this administrator login, if you log in as John, with the password of Cisco, you can only configure phones. You can't actually change the system functions of Call Manager, the date and time, things like that. You can just change phone extensions or add phones and that kind of thing. So if you want to create custom administrators that can access only sections of the GUI, then you want the XML templates. Finally, have the miscellaneous files, and these are things like things that just don't fall under any other category, like custom ringtones. Maybe you want phones to ring and have Homer Simpson going dope every time it rings. By the way, it's cool for about a day with that, but after the phone rings enough times, you'll be so sick of custom rings. You'll just be like, give me just the ring. Backgrounds for the 7970, different color backgrounds, or any of the color phones. Those are things that fall under this miscellaneous category. So get the files from the Cisco website, download them, and put them on a TFTP server. Now I jumped a little bit ahead of myself because I have my official installing CME slide. Number 1, get the necessary files from Cisco. 2, put the files on the TFTP server, just like I mentioned. Now, we're up to step 3. Copy the files into the router's flash memory. Now, there's 2 ways that you can get it there. One, if you're paid hourly, you want to use the copy command because it's going to take you probably 8+ hours to copy every single one of the files over. It's painful and tedious. So Cisco has improved it and it created the archive command, which allows you to extract a tar archive file into the flash memory of the router. Now, early on, when I first got into CME years ago, this was the only way that you could do it. And it would literally, back then they didn't have as many files as they do now, but it would take probably an hour and a half, 2 hours just to copy each one of the individual files. You'll see when we do this. So what I've done is I've actually put the files onto my TFTP server. This is the directory of my TFTP server. I've got a bunch of iOS images and stuff like that. This is the one that I'm using for the router. Down here I downloaded 3 different packs of CME files. Now, as you saw on Cisco's website, if you just want to download basic files, firmware, that kind of thing, you can get that tar pack. You've got the GUI pack, but I've got enough flash memory that I'm going to extract this entire CME full. Now, notice that little pop-up you see there? 62 megs as a compressed file. So this does eat up quite a bit of flash memory, but the new integrated service routers have typically enough to handle it if it's just that in the iOS. So before we get started, I'm going to go on my router and do a show flash. And as of right now, we've got one file, my iOS, which is 45 megs in size. So I've got about 84 megs left. So I've got a 128 meg flash chip. So now all I have to do is use the archive command. I'll do archive. Let's do tar. And I'm going to do a /extract because I want to extract the tar file. And it comes up and says, what is the file name? Now, I love it when it throws Word out there as just something to type in. This is a freeform field where you can put a URL. Like if you have these files sitting on an HTTP or FTP server, I could put http://, and host name and /, all of that. I have it on a TFTP server. So I'm going to do TFTP://. My TFTP server is on the data VLAN that we set up in the last nugget. 172.16.2.50 is the IP address of my server. Matter of fact, you can hear the doubt in my voice, can't you? I'm sitting there thinking about it. I'm just going to copy that to my clipboard and do a show IP interface brief. Okay, good. Got my interfaces up. I'm going to ping the TFTP server just to make sure it's there. Good. Cool. Because that command hangs forever if you do that. So I'll paste that right back in there. Extract TFTP://. There's my IP address /. And then I'm going to do a copy and paste of that tar file. Get that in there. CME full. The full tar file. Do a question mark and it says, where do you want to extract the files to? And I'll just put, in that case, flash. That's where they're going to. Do a space question mark. It says you're done with that line. So hit enter, and it's doing its magic. What it's doing right now is contacting the TFTP server and extracting that tar file on the fly. So you can see these are all the individual files that are in that CME full file pack. Now notice that it's organized into directories. You see BACD prompts. That's the automatic call distribution where it's got, disconnect. We're sorry. please hang up now, or what, it's recorded files. And you see desktops. These are backgrounds for the 7970 phones. You see the Cisco Fountain, Moro Rock, all of these kind of things. And then you go down the GUI. This is the GUI that supports the Call Manager or Communication Manager Express, CME. I'll call it CME. And so these are all the supporting files. Notice they're HTML and JavaScript files. And then what it's going to do, and I'll pause it right after this, is going to extract all of the phone firmware files. This is for the 79, 45, and 65s. But again, I want to point out they are organized into subdirectories. This is a grand idea from Cisco because years ago, when I first got into CME, there was no directory structure. And literally, after doing this, your flash would be trash. You would do a show flash, and you just get gobs of files that you have to sort through, and you're like, where is this? So thankfully, Cisco has organized it. So I'm going to let this thing keep extracting. I've got my TFTP server here that you can see copying that file over. It is on about 23% of its 68 meg file. So this archive process does take a little bit. So I'm pausing. All right, it's done. What we've done is now copied all those CME files into the router flash. You can see the last ones to copy over were the ringtones, so your phone can ring with a saxophone or a pulse or whatever it is you want. But now I'm going to do a dir of flash. Now normally I would type in show flash. That'd be flash colon. But show flash will actually show you everything that's in flash and all the subdirectories. Hang on, let me make my window a little bigger here. So you'll actually see everything. So when I do a dir flash, you see that there's my iOS. And then right here, you see the little D flag. This is a directory. This is a directory. This is a directory. And then two more directories down here. So it didn't just litter my flash with files, but when I do a show flash, I'll see all those files. Notice it shows the directory or the subdirectory that all of them are in. Here's my list of files, and you can actually scroll through and see all the files that made their way over into the flash. So it did take quite a few files and put them in your flash. Just as I'm saying this, now you understand why I said if you're paid hourly, feel free to copy them over manually, because each one of those you'd have to specify the copy command, file name, all that kind of stuff. That was how it was in the day, my friend. So at this point, we now have all the supporting files over on the CME. So by getting the right iOS on there, by copying all those supporting files onto the CME router, we're ready to go into the configuration of CME. That is in the next nugget, where we will begin the configuration of CME, and where things get pretty awesome in my humble opinion, because I think that now that we have this supporting infrastructure there, it's time. It's time to make these phones ring, to get them assigned phone numbers, to get shared extensions. A whole variety of configurations is about to come up, and brace yourself. A whole ton of concepts are going to flow at you starting in the next nugget. So in this one, we saw the Cisco CME licensing, the 3 different licenses that you need to make the Call Manager Express router work correctly, or legally. We then saw the CME design models, or more accurately stated, configuration modes, which was the PBX style and the key switch style, to where you can have a shared extension system with key switches, or everybody having their own extension with PBXs. We got the necessary files from the Cisco website. You can either download the full file pack or download the individual tar files, and you can even get down to the individual files themselves in a zip file from the Cisco website. And then we installed the CME, set up a TFTP server, use either the copy command or archive to get those files copied over. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.